Hi, Alex. Thank you for joining us for GPeC Summit 2016. Great to
Thank you
have
so
you here.
much. Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation. It's great to be here.
For those watching, Alex Langshur is co-founder and senior partner at Cardinal Path. So we're just gonna dive straight in.
Sure, sure.
E-commerce is all about numbers at its core. Let's call it that. How can online retailers learn to identify the right numbers so they can help create better relationships with their customers?
Yeah, that's a really awesome question. And I would say that right numbers is probably maybe a misnomer, right? So I think it's the right things that indicate that we're creating a relationship with our customers. So the first one is, there was an earlier talk today by, I think it was Carl, and he was saying that you need to have a relationship with somebody before you can really start to sell them something, right? So just as we're talking right now, if you know somebody, you feel a lot more comfortable, you're a lot more receptive to the message. So amongst the right numbers, I would look at, and this is kind of a well-known story, is anything that relates back to engagement. So am I able to identify how what I'm putting out into the world is creating a relationship with that person? And the term we typically use is engagement. Now, engagement is really a factor of many things. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Thank you.
Engagement is really a combination of many things, and that's what really changes by the client or the site, right? So I talk about the client, but I meant if you're running an e-commerce site, you have to figure out what it is that you think is going to be of value in terms of building that relationship and then measure against those specific things, right? So definitely, of course, sales absolutely matter, but in terms of the lifetime value of the client, it's how useful and how interesting and how engaged you can make that person if it's something that you're going to sell over and over again to them.
Absolutely. So, what criteria should online retailer use to properly choose the right digital analytics solution for them, given the overwhelming number of solutions out there?
Oh yeah, well, right. So on a tool focus, really, we're in a bit of what I would speak very frankly with you. Okay, we're in a bit of a duopoly right now between Adobe and Google Analytics, or I should say, 360 Suite and Analytics 360. That's not a bad thing. Then there's a whole lot of other vendors that are out there, smaller ones, who are doing some really interesting things. So I would say that from an analytics perspective, you're probably going to be looking at either one of those. But the thing I would caution against is not saying, "Oh, a tool will solve my problem." I think you really need to get in touch with vendors and really ask them some tough questions about whether or not this thing is going to help deal with not just a very kind of point problem, but a larger one. So does the data come out of this integrate with my GA data? Can I use this and extract this into other data sets so I can do some data science on that? Is the, what's the scale and volume of that tool? Can it handle if I grow really large? I mean, there's just so many tools out there that it's really hard to say other than you have to do a fairly detailed assessment. And, I think vendors will help you a lot on that.
Oh, definitely. It's just a matter of understanding what you need from the tools as well.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying that sometimes you don't know. Like, you don't know what you should know, right? You don't know what the questions are. So, I'll come back to this. Certainly people within the industry who are maybe not vendors can give you ideas about things, but my caution is don't overbuy. Don't overbuy because that you can spend a lot of money quickly and it won't deliver the value that you expect. So, the scaled approach.
Um, the next question is about metrics. Which metrics should online retailers use to define their priorities when it comes to optimization in e-commerce?
Right. So I just spoke about this in the talk. And so at Cardinal Path, we're really focused on something called the measurement framework, right? So I'll take a second to walk you through this, right? So there is a customer journey, where they go from awareness to consideration. That customer journey is nonlinear, it's non-sequential, and it's cross-platform. So some challenges there. Against the customer journey, there are different audiences. There are people who don't know anything about you but have just found out about you through some search. There are people that know about you but that haven't bought. There are people that have bought but not often. And then there are people who really love you and come back. And there's many different other audiences, right? Each one of those audiences is going to have different things they're going to do at each stage of the customer journey, right? So somebody that is a repeat buyer, right? they're past the awareness stage. Any awareness metric doesn't matter. Really, at that stage, you're going to be looking a lot more at email metrics. You're going to be looking a lot more on coupon redemption and things that reflect that they're coming back on a regular basis, because you're having a very detailed conversation with them, because they're way further along than somebody who is, doesn't really know about you. At that point, it's really a lot about the engagement metrics that really matter. So which ones to focus on depend on the audience, depend on the customer journey, and depend on the channel.
Perfect. I think that those are some very useful pointers, especially for the e-commerce businesses that have actually been here today at GPeC. What would be some basic and essential digital analytic tactics and implementations that most online retailers tend to overlook?
Well, that's a big question. Most online retailers. All right, so the first thing, I'm going to get a little bit technical here. So in 2016, right, we just did a study in which we surveyed we surveyed the top 500 online retailers, right? And what we did was we tried to see how many of those online retailers are using something as straightforward as a tag management system, TMS. And what we found was that there was about 40 to 45% were not using a tag management system. So in 2016, to not be using a TMS, it's just a fail, right? So absolutely, that would be one thing. And we see that not everybody's doing it. Secondly is, you want to create a data layer on the page. Now that's as technical as I'm going to get, but you want to separate what the content of the page from how that information on the page is sent to your analytics. So you have a data layer, and then you have your page underneath with all the content and all the other elements. So if you're not using a data layer structure, that is a big fail. That's a big fail. And there's a lot of people that aren't. So
Hopefully that will change
I think over time.
in the next few years. I know that you're very deeply involved with the Digital Analytics Association. I think that it's great when people come together and try to move the industry forward like they did here today. How is the association helping online retailers and the e-commerce industry as a whole progress towards better measurement and improved results?
Right, so I'm actually really proud of my participation in the DAA. It's grown considerably under the stewardship of the board and the executive director, and we've just got a new executive director in there. I'm not as deeply involved as I used to be, so just to be upfront about that. But having said that, one of the missions is absolutely how do we evangelize. And so if you are a member, there's all kinds of material which is available for you on benchmarking, on best practices, into networking opportunities. There is commissioned research that's being done right now to understand, again, what they call recipe books that are out there that are available to members. And these recipe books are a really wonderful way of how do we do things from both a basic right through to a more complicated aspect of analytics. Essentially, the idea is to really demonstrate thought leadership across the area of digital analytics and to push that out onto the world. And I think they're accomplishing that mission quite well.
That sounds like an incredible toolkit to have access to. So I hope more people join the association and reap the benefit.
Yeah.
Given that you've spent a day at GPeC Summit 2016, how did you find the whole experience?
Well, first of all, I mean, I was really, I was deeply impressed. I mean, the room was packed, and I went on at 6:30, and I've never seen an audience that stays from 9 o'clock to 6:30 before. So that's I guess indicative of either really a lot of interest, or they were just stunned at the end of the day. But I think it was actually a lot of interest. So a lot of energy, a couple of things. I was not aware that Romania has some of the fastest internet speeds in Europe.
And the world, actually.
And the world. And it's also got some of the lowest cost for that speed in the world. It's got fiber right into a lot of offices. I think that's pretty amazing. And what we're really seeing is so many companies that are sprouting up as a result of it, right? And also there's a lot of intellectual talent here, a lot of human resource talent that are good coders and good developers that are here. So I'm actually quite frankly, really impressed at what I've seen. For a smallish country, it's actually doing, leading edge stuff. And the fact that you have this conference that's so well attended totally reflects that, I think.
Yeah, and the 11th edition, actually.
The
so
11th
yes,
edition,
yes.
yeah, that's fantastic. What a great legacy.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights and experience with us, Alex. It's been great having you here. And I hope we get to see you again soon.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Andra. It's been really great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.